Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, and I hope all of you are doing well. So my name is Jamil. I am the Chief Analyst at GTC, and in this 15 minutes I have with you today, I'm going to introduce to you a little bit about the GTC brand. I'm also going to talk more about what's happening in global financial markets. As I'm sure many of you are aware, these are very interesting global times for the world, and we've had a great deal of market volatility over the past couple of months. And I'm going to discuss what I think might be happening over the next couple of weeks and months as well. But with that in mind, guys, of course, we're talking about investments, and all investments carry a degree of risk. So before I start, I do need to read out our disclaimer. Over-the-counter margin derivative contracts, including contracts for difference and spot foreign exchange, are complex instruments and come with a high risk of losing money rapidly due to leverage. You should consider whether you understand how these products work and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Independent professional advice is highly recommended before investing. This seminar serves as an educational purpose and will not include any financial recommendation or advice. So guys, this content you're about to see is basically my own personal opinions on where different global financial markets and assets might be heading. But before we begin with that, I'm just going to discuss a little bit about the GTC brand and myself as an analyst. So I'm assuming, if I get a show of hands in the room, that some of you are traders. If you're a trader, can you put your hand up? Or if you're trading financial markets? Okay, so I started as a trader of financial markets in the global financial crisis of roughly September 2008. Since then, after trading for a couple of years, I've been a global financial market analyst now for just over 10 years, and I've got the luxury of this career where I'm traveling worldwide. I'm based in Dubai. I get to interview icons like Jim Rogers and appear on the Tier 1 international news stations. But at heart, I believe in trader education and providing the right content. No matter how much fun that might be with traveling around the world, the thing that always gets me the most excited is the opportunity to talk to potential traders and to hopefully provide the right types of content, because all investing carries a degree of risk. If somebody says something that sounds too good to be true, generally it is. So if you are trading, please note that these are assets of financial market volatility. But what also helps is that the GTC brand, the brand that I represent, is booth number 7. We care to share knowledge and to invest in client education. So those core values match my own career aspirations. So I just discussed this event where I had the opportunity to interview Jim Rogers in front of roughly 700 different partners. And in fact, this was during the 2024 Golden Globe Falcon Awards for GTC, where we had 700 partners that traveled worldwide at the end of last year to come to what was essentially our own version of a mini Oscar. Attendees of this event included, of course, Jim Rogers, Nora Fatehi, and members of the UAE family. We are planning on doing a similar activity at the end of this year. If you'd like to find out more, please go to booth number 7 to speak to my teammates. Also at booth number 7, we can talk a little bit more about where the global GTC brand is regulated and some of the key values and USPs of our company. However, as we only have around 10 minutes of this talk left, what I'm going to discuss now is what's happening in global financial markets and where I think assets might be heading. So if I could please just have another show of hands in the crowd. Who's watching the gold price this year? Who's keeping a very close eye on gold? Yeah, I think so. I think some of you are a little bit shy, but it's okay. So obviously the gold price over the past, not just 2025, but also across 2024, it's been record-breaking. I've lost count of how many times the gold price has hit a new all-time high. It has as many award achievements now as Cristiano Ronaldo and his trophy cabinet. As a disclaimer, I am a Manchester United fan as well. So, as we see the headlines around gold across the world financial media, they maintain and are still very optimistic. You have a number of different institutions across central banks, investors driving record demand of gold, not just in price, but also physical gold. It's also helped gold's recent journey that we have the return of a very unpredictable president that's come back to the White House, who might be causing quite a lot of controversy across different global affairs, and especially trade tariffs. I'm sure all of you have heard about Liberation Day on April the 2nd, where part of Make America Great Again version 2, he promised to tariff the global economy and put taxes on pretty much everybody. I've always said from all the way before he was re-elected that if we did have Make America Great Again version 2, version 1 was nothing. What we're seeing now is on steroids compared to before. It's crazy and it's unpredictable, but because of this, we have a lot of financial market volatility. But one of the reasons why investors are purchasing gold to such an extent is because previously, when he was re-inaugurated, there was this theory that he's not really serious about tariffs. He's not really going to tax the global economy that much. Of course, it's going to hurt the US economy. But as time has passed, that view has changed quite sharply. And if you read some of these headlines, especially the top one on our charts here, the IMF has slashed the US economic growth forecast to the worst extent of all the advanced nations for 2025. Trump tariffs will be very bad for America and the world. Stocks slide as Trump warns of US economic transition. I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a few moments, but actually, I think there's been too much fear priced into the market. Nonetheless, the train of thought has changed to America first and always version 1, where America won in terms of economic standing, to now there seems to be more skepticism that if we're really serious about tariffs, if we're really serious about starting trade wars and other market events, that it will hurt the US economy the most. So, in terms of this new line of thinking, we've had the gold price, which has been on an absolute tear now for the last 18 months. But specifically, since Trump was inaugurated, it hit 3,500, very close to late April. But I do think there's some opportunities to talk about now, and I will just move on to the next slide. What's also helped the outlook for gold, and this hasn't been discussed enough, but I think it's something that you all should be paying attention to moving forward, is that we've had the worst and most extensive slide in the dollar. Remember, gold is denominated in dollars for years. The types of swings we've seen in financial markets across the past couple of months, we hadn't seen that since the panic at the beginning of COVID. And I will repeat, I think too much fear has been priced in. So you have the combination of global market uncertainty, concerns about what impact this will have on the US economy and so forth. That's also helping the gold run too. But what if we are just playing poker? Show of hands in the room, there's no right or wrong answer because obviously this is a very unpredictable administration. But who actually thinks that the intention of the returning US president is to really start an economic trade war that will lead to a global markets recession? Can I just have a show of hands in the room? Only a couple? Okay. So does that mean, unless we're all being very shy, that also we are of the opinion that he's playing poker? Maybe he wants to make a deal? Anybody? A couple? Okay. We're starting to get a bit louder. So, what if this is all just a show? Sometimes it's not what he says, but it's what he does. And we've seen this not just across tariffs, we've seen this across different global economic policies. Some would say bilateral relations. I won't get into that too much. But what have we seen happen over the past couple of days? I understand that this world is very fast moving. We always have to be on our fingertips. But we're starting to see that this administration's making deals. This is all about making a deal, not actually about starting economic trade wars with tariffs and so forth. It's about proving to a very nationalistic, voter base, which is patriotic, that we are protecting the America agenda. So if this continues to be the case, and we've seen that actually past weekend, US and China have started to cool down on the tariffs. Tariffs on Chinese goods were 145%. They've now come down towards 30%. On the other end, China has also rolled back on its tariffs, how much American goods are tariffs. So, what can we say has been the recent past? I'm actually a fan of technical analysis. I'm a technical analyst first, but just because we're talking about fundamentals here, I'm being a bit more heavy on fundamentals. Even if you're not following price action, I think we can all be in collective agreement that this chart is very, very one-sided. I spoke about the metaphor at the beginning slides that if something seems too good to be true, it generally is too good to be true. There's another metaphor that I would like to use, and maybe it will come in handy, that what goes up can go down. So, if Trump continues to make deals, if we continue to see that trade wars and so forth, there's been too much fear, too much drama priced into the market, but he's not quite serious. What if some of those trends I showed in our first couple of slides, for example, the sharpest fall in the US dollar for a number of years, what happens if that flips? We might start to see more corrections in financial markets. Again, that volatility we saw in early April was something we hadn't seen in years. But if we're making deals rather than starting trade wars, then that volatility can switch on the other side. But with that in mind, there are some other scenarios that we know we can expect from a Trump presidency. For example, everything is always subject to change. No 2 days are the same. And if we go back to the introduction where I spoke about current education, where I spoke about being on your fingertips in terms of knowing what's happening in global financial market space, I can tell you honestly, as somebody who has skin in this game of nearly 2 decades, that even I'm still continuing to learn new things. And that will never change. I will also say that's the same for this new modern world that we're living in, which is becoming more unpredictable. Some would say somewhat chaotic, but nonetheless, that's the environment we're in. So please, guys, if you're thinking about investing, you're thinking about taking different decisions with your capital and so forth, do be aware that this financial market, the landscape, is subject to change. Sometimes over each trading day. No themes are as current in the market as they used to be. So with that in mind, investing in investor education, keeping on top of the news sources, keeping your finger on the fingertips in terms of what's happening in the world is crucially important. With that in mind, guys, I only had 15 minutes. Unfortunately, I am coming towards the end of the session. I would like to thank all of you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this content. I will be here at booth number 7 for the rest of today, and I wish all of you the best of luck. Thank you for your time.